Well, Stalkers, it seems like we've finally made it out of the zone alive, but when you're dealing with a nuclear apocalypse, the term out of the frying pan and into the fire comes to mind. Will our skills in the irradiated Badlands help us to survive the mutant creatures and warring clans on the Russian metro? I'm Jared, and this is Trash Classics. Set in modern-day Moscow, Metro 2033 takes place several years after a nuclear strike on Russia. During the attacks, those who were lucky enough to make it to the underground tunnels of the metro were sealed in and left to ride out the nuclear winter that would follow. And if the prospect of your home and everyone you love being wiped out in an instant isn't bad enough, survivors living in the damp stations of the city-spanning bomb shelter also have to deal with mutated creatures created by nuclear fallout and even their own fellow survivors. Yeah, life in the metro isn't exactly what you would call desirable, but things can always get worse, and since this is a video game, that's exactly what they do. You experience the story through the eyes of Artyom.
Artyom, awake at last, I see.
A citizen of Exhibition Station, a station that has recently been under constant attack by a new foe, a race of tall black figures that can peer into a person's mind and drive them to insanity. Since these dark ones pose a threat to the entire metro, Artyom is sent across the underground in a desperate attempt of getting help. Now, right from the get-go, I was into this setup and I found myself glued to the screen. During my first playthrough, I couldn't wait to see where the game was going to take me next and what horrors I would experience when I got there. Now, before I fillet this game any further, we need to address the very large elephant in the room. Yes, this is a continuation of my series of reviews on the Stalker games, and there is a major reason for this. Not only were some of the people responsible for those masterpieces present on Metro's development staff, but they seem to have brought Stalker's knack for desolated beauty and environmental storytelling with them. Every station you enter and every tunnel you traverse is filled to the brim with the same radioactive charm that made me fall in love with the Stalker series so many years ago. And if you want to know exactly why that is, well, try checking out my series overview by clicking here or following the links in the description. And since we're talking about world building, it would be unfair to give Stalker all the credit, as the world of Metro 2033 existed before the game ever did. That's right, this game is based 100% on a book, and is easily the absolute best example of knocking that approach right out of the fucking park. Almost every scene, character, and revelation depicted in the book is wonderfully fleshed out here. Yes, there are some aspects that were cut a little short, but I've never in my life seen such a reverence for source material. As a matter of fact, I suggest you read the book right after you play the game. It's a damn good read. But these are all auxiliary to the experience, so how does the gameplay hold up? Well, that's a tough one to call. The core game consists of huge amounts of white-knuckle, action-packed first-person shooting broken up by large stealth segments that have you crawling through stations and taking bandits and Nazis out with silenced weapons or a quick knife to the neck. Now, you would think that the firefights would steal the show here, but if I'm being honest, creeping through the shadows and taking out enemies was where all the fun was for me. Now, I do have to mention that I'm playing this on the Ranger Hardcore difficulty, which is something that I can't really recommend for first-timers.
Mom, I saw the sky!
Not only does it make mutants almost impossible to kill without headshots, it also decreases the amount of ammo and supplies that can be scavenged and takes away every aspect of the heads-up display. This mode is easily the most immersive way you can play this game, but when you start to realize that reloading without an empty magazine means losing all the bullets that were in it, and the only way to change sub-weapons is hidden in the HUD that you no longer have, a clear trade-off is being made here. I can't say it enough, this mode is for second playthroughs and gamers looking for insane and sometimes unfair difficulty. But regardless of your views on the gameplay, the world of Metro 2033 is going to be the main draw for most. An almost psychotic level of detail awaits you in these dark tunnels, and I'm amazed to say there are areas in the game that are just a stone's throw away from photorealism. This may be an HD remaster you're seeing here, but rest assured the original release was no graphical slouch either. Little things like condensation collecting on gas masks and blood spraying on your face after an up-close kill make this game one of the most graphically convincing games I've ever played, and yes, it even sits above the mighty S.T.A.L.K.E.R in this regard. But don't expect to go frolicking through an open world, because Metro 2033 is about as linear as the train lines in its tunnels. You guide RTM on a set path the entire game, and you know what? I wouldn't have it any other way. I'm not sure if it was a limitation of the engine or a conviction to stay true to the book, but Metro makes linearity work, and it might be the best use of it I've seen. Well, I think we all know there is no perfect game, so there are obviously some downsides to consider. First and foremost, the Ranger Hardcore mode leans way too far towards unfair on the difficulty meter, but the trade-off in immersion might be worth it for some. The vanilla release of Metro was a resource hog, but luckily the Redux version is leaps and bounds better in terms of engine optimization. That being said, the volumetric smoke and environments on the surface might have your FPS dropping below 60 every so often, but trust me when I say this game will likely have you drooling over its graphics way too much to notice. Even though Metro stands as a polar opposite to my beloved Stalker games, I can say that in the same sense, it's also a chip off the old block. Take Stalker's maniacal obsession with environmental design, loot scavenging, and post-apocalyptic world building, then throw it into a heavily scripted, story-based stealth game, and you have one of the most engrossing games I've had the pleasure of playing. If there is one game you pick up this year, make it Metro 2033. Just make sure to protect yourself. On top of being highly radioactive, it's also a trashed classic. Hey, thanks for swinging by, guys. Well, if you think Metro is interesting, you might like my reviews of the Stalker games right here. And if getting more underground hits smashed straight into your face piece sounds like a good idea, well then maybe hit that subscribe button.